What's up, YouTube? It's your girl Michelle, and we are going to get started with dinner. Tonight we're going to be making some beef pasta, what I like to call it. But in other words, let's get some hamburger helper. We're going to be making this with some dinner rolls with some honey butter and some corns. Let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and season our ground beef. I have mine about a pound of ground beef. I'm going to add a little more to it. I just didn't want all of it to be too mushed in together and not get a very good seasoning over it. Today's seasoning, we have some complete seasoning, some chopped onion, some parsley, oregano, some garlic, a little bit of seasoned salt, some black pepper, and some basil. So those are the only seasonings we're going to use tonight. Before I stick my meat inside of my frying pan, I am going to start it off with a little bit of minced garlic as well as some fresh peppers. So we're just going to start by seasoning our meat like so. You want to make sure it has a nice good coating on it. That way when you mix it up, you know it's mixed very well. Some dehydrated onion. I do not measure seasonings ever. I know that's probably like the norm with fair-skinned colored people, as I'll say. A little seasoned salt. Then we're going to add in a little oregano. Followed by a little basil. Finish that off with a few shakes of garlic powder and some regular black pepper. Myself, my kitchen, my kids, my home, I like to use my hands to mix. So we're going to get in there and just make sure we're kind of breaking that meat up before we just get all into it and start stirring it around. That way we can make sure it all has a nice even coat. I like to season meat in the sink. That way if it drops or the excessive seasoning that comes off of the meat will automatically be in the sink and it can just be washed away. So I like to mix it up like so. If you kind of look really good into it, you can definitely see some seasoning going on in there. Again, I do have a little more hamburger to go ahead and season. So with this hamburger, I'm going to go ahead and put in a clean bowl I have sitting right here. And we're just going to dump that in there like so. And we're going to season the other half of our meat. Alright guys, so now I'm going to go ahead and just add just a little bit of mojo. Excuse me, you do not have to correct me. I know the correct name of it. Just grew up. Everybody called it mojo, so I call it mojo. I'm going to add just a little mojo to the top of that meat. Kind of give it a nice kind of push down into it. It doesn't necessarily need to be remixed or regrinded. And we're just going to let that sit while I go ahead and get these garlic and peppers started on the stove. So it does not take long for that avocado oil to go ahead and warm up. I'm going to go ahead and add to that avocado oil some minced garlic, some onion, chopped pepper, red and yellow. I didn't have any green or orange, or I would have added those too. I like all kinds of peppers in almost everything I cook. I think it makes the dish look good, and it also brings a little delicate flavor. So we're gonna go ahead and drop those peppers and garlic and onion in there like so. I don't know if anybody caught that, but I got a little scared. Turned up the heat on me a little bit, wasn't quite ready. So we're gonna go ahead and throw all that in there like so. And just to give it a quick mix around. Just gonna allow that avocado oil to cook those down. For the most part, you could go ahead and allow those guys to sit, and they won't just burn right off the bat. Within a few minutes, though, you definitely will start to smell the aromas of the peppers, the garlic, and the onions start to consume your household. So I just like to mix it up every now and again like so. And I'm going to actually leave this here and go ahead and get started on our corn that we're going to be having with our dinner. Alright, so at this time, those peppers, onions, and garlic are starting to get just about the consistency that I like them to go into our food. Just a bit of a crunch, just a little bit of burntness. In my opinion, that's not burnt, but you know, some people may consider that burnt. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and remove those off the stove. I'm not going to clean out this pan. I'm going to turn the stove on low here. But I'm going to remove these off of the stove and back into the little bowl they came out of, excuse me. And those will be added to the top of our beef pasta when it is done cooking. We're going to go ahead and sit that bowl right there. And those are those nice grilled peppers, onions, and garlic. We have all of our onions and peppers and garlic removed out of our frying pan. I am not going to clean that frying pan. I feel like what you see left over in there, that residue, is juice and flavorful. So we are going to go ahead and leave that in there as we add our hamburger helper. Nice, healthy around the pan. We're not going to put all of that hamburger in there at one time, because similar to seasoning, you just don't want it to be too much, and you want to make sure it's all cooked. You're not feeding your family raw meat. Me, myself, I just go ahead and grab handfuls at a time, make sure it is pulled apart as I'm sticking it in the pan, and just give it a few moments to go ahead and start to cook. Start to make its own oil. That way we can go ahead and start mixing it around. Now, as that is cooking, our water has started boiling over here. So we are going to take our 2 boxes. Oh, my spoon. Put that in the sink. We are going to take 2 boxes of Hamburger Helper Stroganoff flavors. We're just going to pour that . Just gonna pour those noodles right into that water. Now I'm pouring these noodles fairly slow, so I'm trying to be careful because there is a seasoning pack that does come inside of this box, and I just don't want to pour it in that hot water. I've done that before. It wasn't fun. So just gonna pour all those noodles in there. We're going to follow suit with our second box as well. try to get them in there as close as possible together. That way all of the noodles are kind of cooking at the same speed, same temperature, and they'll be done for you relatively around the same time. So again, we're going to just toss all those noodles in there. There are instructions on the back of the box. However, I do not use them. I think after my second or third time making Hamburger Helper, even then, I never really followed quite what the directions told me. Kind of just went off a feeling. So we got our noodles boiling, and then over here we have our hamburger meat cooking. And apparently I got a few shells over here. Excuse me. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a spoon and start browning this hamburger. So those noodles are boiling very good. I did go ahead and turn them down to about a 4 or a medium. And over here, our hamburger, if you can tell, is starting to juice up in its pan real good. So we're just gonna play with it a little bit. Make sure it's getting cooked through. And we'll start to flip it in a few more minutes. I'm actually gonna go ahead and turn this up. I did not realize the stove was as low as it was. At this time, I'm also going to preheat my oven to 375 just to have it preheated and ready to go when I'm go to put my dinner rolls in there. So as you can see, that meat is starting to cook. Those juices are starting to come out. Once that meat does kind of cook up the bottom layer, I like to go ahead and kind of flip that over. So we're going to give that just a few more minutes to kind of cook over and make sure that other side that I just flipped down there is well and brown. And we're just going to continue to mix that around and mix that up. In the meantime, here I have went and opened 2 cans of whole corn. I myself personally like to take and drain the corn. It does not matter what brand it is. I do take it and drain the corn, however, as well as rinse it out a few times with some water from the sink until that yellowish juice looking substance is gone. So after we have 2 cans of whole corn in our pot, and I'm going to walk this over to the sink, and we're going to add just some fresh water into the pot. Not too much, but a decent amount. Nice, good, clean water. That should be about good. So then we're going to take that pot and place it back on the stove. We're actually going to put this corn on about a medium. Now let's go ahead and add some seasonings to it. First and foremost, I like to add a little salt. And a little pepper. And I'm going to go ahead and allow that to start simmering. As that starts its process of cooking, we're going to go back over here to this hamburger that is starting to cook down beautifully. We're going to go ahead and again just play with it a little bit, mix it all up, take that bottom layer from off the bottom of the pan because it's nice and brown, flip it around. I know you guys are probably looking like my pan like, gee, it's crazy. That thing is turning around in circles. I really do like this pan though. I'm not particularly why. It's a very cheap pan. It's nothing extravagant. It doesn't really have any sentimental value to me. But I really do like this pan. So I just have not decided to get rid of it yet. So we're going to go ahead and continue to cook that down. And you want to cook that hamburger down until you see no pink at all. Even a little beyond not seeing any pink. That's how I make sure my hamburger is done. And I'm feeding my children, you know, a nice, fully cooked, balanced meal. Because I allow that hamburger to sit even after a few minutes after seeing no pink. So it's not quite done just yet. So we're going to go ahead and let that sit some more. Continue to cook on down, kind of break up those chunks is what I'm doing. You want to make sure that meat is all the way cooked through. And typically when you have chunks of meat, it tends to not cook. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there. And then we're going to go ahead and take another spoon and check the consistency of our noodles. You do not want your noodles too soft because when you add the meat and noodles together, they still have to cook for a few minutes. And if they are already fully cooked, by the time before you add the meat and sauce to it, they will get soggy. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and move those from the stove. And I'm going to do that by taking a clean strainer and putting it in my sink, turning on some cold water. Then I'm going to take that pot of noodles and I'm going to dump that in that nice clean strainer right there directly in the sink. And just to rinse off the pot a little bit. I'm going to pick up that strainer and kind of just switch those noodles around in some cool water. Try to stop the cooking process just a little bit. Like, shake them up a little. And after I've cooled those noodles down quite a bit, we're just going to shake off some of that excess water and bring them right back over to that exact same pot they were just in. And there is our noodles. Now until our hamburger is done and our seasoned packets are ready to go into this pot, we're just going to go ahead and cover that with a lid. Alrighty, and our hamburger is cooking down pretty good. Again, we're going to go ahead and mix that up just a little bit more. As you can see, each time we mix, there's less and less pink. Go ahead and chop up. Make sure you're taking a real good thorough look. You're not seeing any pink. And this is the point where I don't see any pink. So I'll go ahead and leave this in here for just a few more moments just to make sure everything is done into my liking. So now that that meat looks completely done, and we'll left it for just a moment longer after we see no meat, just to kind of double check and make sure there is no pink or no raw hamburger still in there. We're going to go ahead and take this off of the stove and put it in a strainer so that it catches all of that grease and it'll fall right off. So I did go ahead and add that meat to that strainer. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and add just the last little bit of my raw meat into our frying pan. gonna come in and chop this up. Make sure it's cooking thoroughly and get it evenly coated around the pan. Now that that's going to go ahead and cook, we're going to go ahead and leave it for just a few minutes. After I went ahead and added that butter and sugar, I'm going to give it just a little stir and allow it to continue to boil and simmer like that for about 5 more minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and take it off the stove. This is my second batch of hamburger. As you can see, it's cooking very well and cooking thoroughly through. So we're just going to allow that to continue to cook and simmer down. We're going to chop it a bit up. That way we know it's getting all cooked thoroughly through. And we don't want any pink meat left in there. So we're just going to chop it up a bit more. Break up all those big chunks of meat. Not seeing too much pink, but there is a little bit left in there. So we're going to chop all that up real good. And we're going to leave it to cook and simmer for just a few more minutes. And then we'll come back and check on it. So at this time, my second pan of hamburger is completely done. It's been done for a few minutes now. Completely no pink has been seen in it. I have been chopping it around and just mixing it up just to kind of make sure. So at this time, I am going to go ahead and turn this burner on low because I am going to use it. But to start off this process, what I am going to do is take my pot of noodles. And to that pot of noodles, I am going to add that first batch of hamburger that we made from that strainer, like so. I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side so we can strain our second pot of hamburger. I did go ahead and start mixing this around. This is that first pan of hamburger with those noodles. It does seem like fairly a lot of meat. Maybe I did not realize how much hamburger I had. But oh well. It'll be eaten. So we're going to go ahead and take the remainder of that hamburger and just pour it right on top inside of this pot. Straining some of that grease off of it. Always strain your meat, people. You don't want to consume that. That's no good for you. So then we're going to just come on over and pour that on here just like so. And it is a lot in this pot going on. So I am going to sit down the camera to get this mixed up pretty well and get some added ingredients, milk, 2 packs of seasoning that came with the 2 boxes of beef pasta. So I went ahead and added both of our pasta sauce packets. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add on top of that 2 cups of almond milk, and then we're gonna give this a nice little stir. We may need just a little bit more milk. Okay, so this is what our pasta is looking like mixed up at this point. It should be a little bit more moist than that, excuse me. So I am going to go ahead and add in about another cup of almond milk, as well as a 1/2 cup of heavy whipping cream. And I'm going to go ahead and give this a stir and put it on the stove on low. So I did go and add just a little bit more heavy whipping cream and milk to that, as well as just a little water. When it comes to my beef pasta, I like to see some moisture in it. That way I know it's going to sit and simmer for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and it's actually going to soak and simmer that juice up, so the meat in the pasta will be very flavorful and juiceful. At this time, I also like to go ahead and toss on those peppers, onions, and garlic that we grilled before we cooked our hamburger, and just kind of toss them on top and get them a toss around in that pasta as well. That's going to bring out some extra flavoring, a little surprise, and a few bites as you bite down into that peppers and onions and garlic. So we're going to allow this to sit on the stove for about 5 minutes until we see that juice kind of come to a slight boil. Then I'm going to add a nice layer of cheese, and then we're going to serve dinner. Alright guys, at this time our beef pasta is just about done. That little boiling you see going on is a very good sign. That means our milk and water is transforming into the thickness of some gravy, and that's exactly what you want to see. So we're going to go ahead and mix that up a little bit. And I like to add just a little layer of cheese on top of mine, some mozzarella cheese. Like so. Nice good layer of cheese on top. We're going to go ahead and put that top back on there just until that cheese melts. We do have this on about a 2. The corn is nice and cooked. I've already went ahead and turned that off. So the last thing in our meal is going to be some King's Hawaiian rolls. I often buy the 24 pack. I have a large family. If you have never tried these rolls actually in the oven and baked, I advise you to. They are amazing, warm. I like to add to them, spray some Pam on the aluminum foil that they're in the oven on. Add some Pam. And I also like to add on some Land O'Lakes honey butter spread to the top of them as they go in the oven. They do not need any more than 2 minutes. Honestly, you're pretty much just warming the bread up, just to give you a little bit of warmth to it. So I like to go in with a butter knife, grab me a decent scoop of that, and just kind of coast it across the top of all of the bread. Kind of get into the grooves a little. And get some more butter here. And spread it all the way around, even on the sides. Make sure there's some nice crispy edges to them. And as you can see, that butter is starting to melt instantly. My oven is at 275. I did preheat it a while ago, so it would not take this bread long. So we're going to coast the bread with honey butter like so. And I'm just going to pop that in the oven for a quick 2 or 3 minutes. I didn't get a chance to show you guys what that pasta sauce looked at, that meat pasta looked like with that cheese melted on top of it, forgive me. But after it is completely mixed up with all of that good cheese, this is the outcome. And I will go ahead and put this on the kids' plate and just put just a little bit of mozzarella cheese on top of it as I plate it. Alright guys, so this is kind of what I mean by it. It only takes a few minutes. As you can see, that bread looks nice and warm. Toasty edges with buttery, flaky insides. And that's going to go on the kids' plates with their dinner.